Number 7. Geordie Honor. Geordie Honor was traveling through Western Australia's Midwest region on March the 18th of 2022 on her way home to Pinjarra when she was brutally attacked by a man who'd reportedly been stalking her. 20-year-old Honor had first taken notice of the suspicious individual at about 5 p.m. after stopping at a roadside store off Northwest Coastal Highway. She drove for another 3 miles before pulling into a parking bay. It was at that point when the man approached her and began repeatedly asking for her phone number. When Honor indicated that she didn't want to disclose that information to him, the stranger became hostile. The young woman reached for a knife that was located in her car door, but her stalker launched his attack before she was able to grab it. He reportedly beat her unconscious and dragged her underneath her vehicle, where she remained for roughly 5 hours until a passing truck driver noticed her. Upon having water poured over her face, Honor regained her senses and managed to drive herself to Jurien Bay Hospital. As of the latest updates on the case, her attacker hadn't been identified, but he was described as being in his 30s or 40s and having dirty blonde hair. Number 6. Jose Merlos and Nikki Wong. A couple driving through a remote section of the Australian Outback became stranded on January the 3rd of 2021 after their car got stuck in the sand. According to subsequent reports, Jose Merlos and his fiancée, Nikki Wong, had been traveling on rural back roads while returning home from a vacation to Cairns. After their vehicle had become disabled, the couple were forced to continue the journey on foot. They reportedly left a handwritten note in their abandoned car indicating that they were walking to Inaminka, a small town near the South Australian border. Over the course of the next 2 days, Merlos, Wong, and their dog Loki trekked nearly 25 miles in the scorching heat, relying on a preloaded map due to the lack of cell phone reception in the area. In a statement to the Royal Flying Doctor Service, the couple revealed that they were forced to drink dirty water from a cattle trough as well as their own urine to stave off extreme dehydration. Then on January the 5th, Merlos and Wong finally encountered a motorist on the secluded roadway who drove them the remaining 15 miles to Inaminka. As was later detailed by a nurse practitioner from the Outback, the temperature during the time in which they were stranded had been about 20 degrees cooler than the typical annual average. If the weather had aligned with the usual January temperatures, the couple would have likely died before being rescued. Number 5. Peter Falconio and Joanne Lees. A pair of British backpackers went missing on July the 14th of 2001 after they'd gone on a hike in a remote area of the Stewart Highway near Barrow Creek in Australia's Northern Territory. One of the tourists, Joanne Lees, re-emerged in the early hours of the following morning when she flagged down a road train driver who took her into town. Lee subsequently went to the Alice Springs police to report that she and her boyfriend, 28-year-old Peter Falconio, had been attacked by a stranger who'd been following them as they traveled along Stewart Highway towards Devil's Marbles. The man had gestured for the couple to pull over to the side of the road. After they'd done as indicated, he allegedly claimed to have witnessed sparks shooting out of their van's exhaust pipe. Falconio went to the rear of the vehicle to investigate while Lees sat in the driver's seat, ready to rev the engine on his signal. The woman then heard a gunshot ring out from behind the van, after which the stranger jumped into the passenger seat and held her at gunpoint. He reportedly bound Lees' hands and feet before also taping her mouth and then dragging her to his car. While the gunman was preoccupied with attempting to move Falconio's lifeless body out of the road, Lees fled into a nearby bush. The attacker searched for the woman, coming within inches of her position on 3 separate occasions before ultimately giving up and leaving the area. The authorities launched a search for Falconio, whose body still hadn't been recovered as of the latest information available of the case. In 2003, investigators identified Western Australia resident Bradley John Murdoch as the individual responsible for Lees' assault and Falconio's presumed murder. Following a trial before the Supreme Court of the Northern Territory, Murdoch was found guilty of the charges levied against him and consequently sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 28 years. Number 4. Phu Tran, Tamara McBeath Riley and Claire Hockridge. 3 Australian citizens disappeared after going camping in the Outback near Alice Springs on November the 19th of 2019. It subsequently emerged that Phu Tran, Tamara McBeath Riley, and Claire Hockridge had been reported missing by family members on November the 23rd. 3 days later, Northern Territory Police launched an air search for the missing trio that primarily focused on areas near Owen Springs, Stewart's Well, and Rainbow Valley. The extensive search effort failed to yield any results for the first 10 days. Then on December the 1st, McBeath Riley was found by a rescue helicopter east of Stewart's Well. As the woman later told investigators, she and the others had become stranded after their car had gotten bogged down in the Fink River. McBeath Riley added that her 2 travel companions had set out to find help after they'd run out of supplies, but added that she hadn't heard from them for several days. Then on December the 2nd, Tran was found by a cattle farmer who'd gone to look for the missing hikers after hearing about the situation on the news. 40-year-old Tran, who'd survived by drinking groundwater, was taken to a local hospital. A couple of days later, the police came upon Hockridge's remains in the Northern Territory Outback. It later emerged that the trio's ill-fated hike had actually been a drug smuggling operation gone wrong. An official investigation into the matter uncovered that Tran, McBeath Riley, and Hockridge had traveled into the Outback on the day of their disappearance in order to recover methamphetamines that they'd previously hidden in a remote section of the countryside. Number 3. Reg Fogarty. A 62-year-old man embarked on a hunting trip in the remote West Australian goldfields on October the 7th of 2015. The West Australian police force would later reveal that Reg Fogarty had last been seen at a campsite roughly 100 miles east of Laverton. Fogarty subsequently got lost, reportedly while hunting for a camel, and his family declared him missing the following morning. He remained missing for almost a week until on October the 12th, tactical response group trackers began finding footprints he'd left behind. They eventually came upon Fogarty under a tree about 9 miles from the campsite. The man was said to have been extremely dehydrated and delusional at the time of his rescue. Upon being transported to a Kalgoorlie hospital by the Royal Flying Doctor Service, Fogarty's condition was reportedly stabilized. According to subsequent reports, the wayward hunter had relied on the consumption of black ants for his survival, which the authorities deemed miraculous, given the dearth of food and water at his disposal. Today's topic was inspired by the hungry slug. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Paddy Moriarty. On the evening of December the 16th of 2017, an elderly resident of the small Northern Territory town Larrimah went missing along with his dog. Paddy Moriarty had last been seen leaving the town pub on his quad bike. In the days that followed, local authorities organized extensive searches, and Northern Territory Police also offered a $250,000 reward for pertinent information that might lead to Moriarty's recovery. Despite the large-scale rescue effort, Moriarty was never found, and investigators thus began suspecting his presumed death in the Outback had been precipitated by foul play of some kind. It subsequently emerged that the 70-year-old man had been entrenched in a long-standing feud with a neighbor of his named Fran Hodgetts. The latter had called the police a few months before Moriarty's disappearance to report that the plants in her garden had been poisoned. She blamed Moriarty outright for the occurrence, but she was unable to provide any evidence in support of her allegations. Nevertheless, the incident had caused tensions between the two neighbors to escalate dramatically. According to a 2022 inquest into the matter, the police had captured secret recordings made between January and June of 2018, in which a man had allegedly confessed to murdering Moriarty and his dog. The individual in the audio was identified as local resident Owen Laurie, who'd worked for Hodgetts in the past and had gotten into a verbal altercation of his own with the missing man. In the wake of the inquest's findings, Coroner Greg Kavanagh referred the case to the Director of Public Prosecutions, who was tasked with deciding whether criminal charges could be pursued against Moriarty's neighbors. Number 1. Kate Ellen Alford. In September of 2020, Kate Ellen Alford had been out drinking with colleagues at the Springshore Hotel in central Queensland when she decided to drive them back to the cattle station where they worked. Court records indicated that one of 19-year-old Alford's colleagues had expressed concerns regarding her ability to drive while she was obviously intoxicated. Nevertheless, the young woman set out on the 80-mile trip through the Queensland Outback with Amy Pilgrim, aged 23, in her passenger seat. It was later reported that neither of the women had fastened their seatbelts upon getting into the car, an aspect which ultimately proved disastrous When Alford lost control of the vehicle, she had been filming a video for Snapchat and consequently hadn't been looking at the road in front of her when she mounted the dirt shoulder, clipped a tree, and rolled the car several times. Pilgrim was flung from the vehicle and Alford ultimately found her unconscious, roughly 65 feet from the crash site. Alford fruitlessly attempted to perform CPR on her workmate, who was later pronounced dead after having suffered multiple catastrophic injuries. The police tested Alford's blood alcohol content, which was determined to have been above Australia's legal driving limit at the time of the deadly incident. She was taken into custody and charged with several offences, including dangerous operation of a vehicle leading to death. Upon reaching a plea deal with prosecutors, Alford was given a suspended sentence that only jailed her for a period of 3 months. Thanks for watching. Would you rather try to survive in the Outback or sail the Atlantic with no navigation? Let us know in the comments section below.